should we gauge when kids come of age? NewYorkTimes.com notes that many graduating high school seniors have been driving since they were 16, and that those who have turned 18 are no longer considered minors, meaning they can vote, join the military, and stop having stupid hair like the members of One Direction. But they can't buy a beer. So the website asks, is it time to rethink the age of adulthood? Do the age requirements for certain rights need to be lowered or raised? Shouldn't they at least be consistent? One neurosurgeon weighs in, as neurosurgeons often do, noting that different brain regions mature at different paces, with systems for logical reasoning maturing by age 16, but those involved in self-regulation still developing into young adulthood, or sadly not at all for people like Bill. And anyway, the op-ed writer observes that age boundaries are drawn mainly for political reasons and not scientific ones. Ain't that right, goat-loving toddler?
Hey, sweet angel.
I hope he never grows old. I don't mean that in a bad way, but I just realized what that sounded
like. Not one of those stunting diseases.
Not what I meant. Yeah,
I hope he's a Webster.
I hope he lives a long, healthy life is what I meant. Hey, Jedediah, should we rethink the age of adulthood, or at least try to figure out why we set different ages for different things?
I would say yes, but I feel like the whole thing is so subjective in a sense. What defines adulthood for me, what age that means might be different for you. It's very personal.
Right.
One person's growth is different from another's. So I wind up feeling all the time like some guy behind a desk just picks these random ages for different things.
Right.
And I don't know how you would make that even. How would you make that make sense for everyone?
No, it's a good question. And the Dutch over there in Finland allow children to drink at the age of 16, but they're not allowed to drive until they're 19. We sort of have it reversed, where you can drive well before you can drink. Isn't driving a bigger responsibility than drinking?
Yes. And I think that a person should be declared an adult when they grow back hair. And for me, that was at age 9.
Yeah.
Women as well? Does that go for the ladies too?
Yeah.
What if you never grow back hair?
Well, then you're never a man.
Really?
This is actually a true...
He said back, not facial.
This is actually true. When Bova was in utero, his mom was bitten by a monkey. That is an actual fact.
That is a fact.
Really?
Yeah. That is a fact.
Something to be said right there, and he's got a tail.
Anthony, you were saying in the green room we should lower the drinking age to 16, but raise the voting age to 35.
35.
Yeah.
That's what I think. People are a little more responsible at 35. I think. You've always used that. Everybody uses that whole thing. Well, you could go to war, but you can't drink until you're 21. You can go to war at 18.
I've never heard that.
No, I've never heard that either. But I just made it up. You like it?
Yeah, it's pretty good.
I should get behind that.
You should tweet that later.
I'm going to tweet it later.
Yeah.
It's a nice bon mot.
I think there's people that are very mature at 18. There's people that are dopes at 18.
Right.
It's hard to legislate that. It is such a subjective thing. But I say just scrap the whole thing, reset at 16, everything goes.
Really?
Wait, you mean everything? I like it.
Knock on the door.
Might be a little young.
You heard us, man.
Including voting?
Yes, voting too. I don't even care at this point. The astrologists say
that's true. The voting is a sham.
Hi, I'm Chris Hansen. Anthony? Is that Zima you had?
There's cases of Mike's Hard Lemonade being put to use. Hey, Bill, you're 36 and basically still a child. Not a question.
Coming up.
Yeah.
Why everybody's brain develops at different times and in different ways. And I know I'll probably get letters for that. But if that's the case, then why don't we have cognitive tests developed by experts in that field that will determine whether an individual is rational enough to drive, to drink, to watch Basic Instinct? Why can't it be different for every single person? You know why it can't be a bit different? Because everything sucks. I'm old and I'm a pessimist.
And also because you would cheat on all the tests.
Yeah.
I'm not smart enough to cheat, madam.
Really?
Also, I shouldn't be
cheated
driving.
off me once.
Jedediah, wouldn't all these tests in Bill's fantasy land, wouldn't they all be run by liberals, psychiatrists?
There we go.
They'd be run by the same guys behind the desk who are just setting these random ages now, so it wouldn't make a difference.
Absolutely.
What the cost of an adult license would be? The license to be an adult in this country?
None of us would have one for sure.
I'm sorry, we're taking that away. I heard you say nyan, 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 nyan.
Why are you still wearing Velcro shoes?
Hey, Anthony, in most states you have to be 18 to buy a long gun, 21 to buy a handgun. Is that fair?
No, I think I remember my dear old dad buying me a pistol at 13 on my 13th birthday. Yeah. And then he smacked me in the head and sent me off to a hooker and said, "Be a man." But yeah, maybe all that doesn't work.
Is that like an Italian bar mitzvah?
Yes, it really is.
That would have been a lovely coming of age story if you didn't shoot the hooker.
Well, he gave me the gun.
It is kind of weird though that you, like you said, you can join the military and fire things a lot more powerful than a handgun at 18, but you can't buy a handgun until you're 21.
Yeah, there's so many of those dumb rules in this country, and I think it's what you said before. It's so arbitrary, and people are just making them up willy-nilly, as they say.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Hey, Bova, when did you consider yourself an adult, if ever?
Well, as I said, when I was 9, when I first sprouted in every direction. And
We're still talking about the hair.
Yeah. And the kids in the locker room all ran screaming.
Yeah. Okay, so you've got kids, or a kid, or several kids. Two, yeah, whatever.
Two, yeah.
I honestly feel like you don't actually become an adult until you have kids, and which is fine with me. I'm happy not being an adult, and it's one of the reasons I don't want to have kids.
Right.
But is there something there? Like, isn't that when you actually become a responsible adult, when you have kids?
Yeah, well, there's this weird thing that happens where you feel like I would murder someone if they touched this thing of mine, you know? And
like that about my guns.
Right. But
you're talking about your kid.
Yeah. I call him a thing.
Okay, yeah.
But yeah, I stand by that. I'm not going to make a joke.
Yeah, no, it was actually a fairly serious question.
It does seem odd, though. I talk to a lot of people that have had kids that I grew up with and stuff like that, and it's like they slept next to the pod in Invasion of the Body Snatchers. Right. Before they have a kid, they're drinking, having fun, and then they have the kid. It's like, my life for you. Everything is for you, the child. And I just can't understand that.
It sounds awful, doesn't it?
It sounds horrible.
You guys will never understand the joy of parenthood. As the only other adult at this table, I will say, Laquifa, it's very late. Go to bed.
All right.
If indeed you're still alive.
All right. We're moving on now. From coming to age to the oldest profession. Should paying to screw be less taboo? Well, a former pimp is making the case for legalizing prostitution, arguing that neither law enforcement nor any legislature can dictate social mores. Jason Itzler, who's serving a 4-year sentence for running an escort service, among other things, notes in a New York Daily News op-ed, quote, "There were prostitutes and johns in ancient Athens, and every city and every civilization either has legalized, recognized, and regulated this line of work." And he argues that prostitution can actually save marriages, pointing to a Kinsey Institute report that about 10% of married men in their 40s reported having no sex in the past year. The self-proclaimed king of all pimps also finds it ironic that porn, another form of trading sex for money, is legal and that its stars make a nice salary to boot. Anyway, speaking of things that should stay in the shadows.
Adorable.
Now, how is that legal?
I don't know.
Hey, Anthony, does this guy have a point? Should prostitution be legalized?
I don't know. I like the point that he brought up that in ancient time, when people bring up ancient times, I mean, I've watched Game of Thrones and the prostitution and sex looks great. Everything else sucks. Everything else looks like it hurts. Or smells really bad. So to equate it to ancient times is silly, but yes, I think prostitution legalized, take the pimp slap out of the whole thing.
Right.
And I don't see it as a crime with victims in it. I think it's a business, and if a girl wants to do that with her own body, so be it.
Well, Jedediah Itzler says the only reason prostitution exploits women is because it's illegal, that if it was licensed and regulated, the lives of sex workers would be a lot better.
I just said that.
Is that a fair point?
I think it is a fair point.
I'm
that
calling
it might
you Itzler from now on.
It might be safer, it might be more regulated in terms of screenings. We see that with pornography where you have to get these STD tests and all that. That's a fair point. I always find myself struggling with these issues with marijuana legalization because I'm a strong advocate of personal responsibility and people making their own choices. And I feel like if you're an adult and this is something that you want to do and it is really a business, then I don't have a problem with it. I'm not going to take part in it, but I'm also not going to go to strip clubs and gamble my way to being broke, and those things are legal. Right. So there's a subjectivity here too that kind of bothers me.
No, I agree. Dan Itzler, he predicts that New York will legalize prostitution by 2020. You think that's right?
Yes. And I love his theory that this can help save marriages.
That part I don't agree with.
Conversation. Honey, I love you so much. I'm going to whore.
All right, now Dan, I want you to shut the cameras and audio off. Now, Dan, seriously, could it save marriages?
Put them back on again.
Yeah.
Terrible.
Welcome back. Welcome back. Bill, anything to add?
I like the fact that the whole time I'm reading this, I'm like, for a former pimp, this is a very cogent, well thought out argument with lots of good facts.
Yeah.
And then I noticed it was co-written by his author. I'm sorry, by his lawyer.
Right.
And then I realized this is a very cogent thing with the byline of a pimp that was written by a lawyer.
Yeah.
That was nothing that guy said that was made up.
Yeah, I think you're probably right about that.
How many times a week do you say the word cogent?
Cogent is a fun thing to say. Do I really know what it means?
I used to watch that.
It's on the periphery of something that I regard as albatross.
Yeah, all right. All right, time to take a break. What do raindrops on roses and whiskers on kittens, bright copper kettles and warm woolen mittens, brown paper packages tied up in strings all have in common? Anthony Cumia discusses his latest book. These are a few of my favorite things. But first, what did David Letterman claim he's guilty of? How about not killing the top 10 list 15 years ago? You're watching Red Eye on FNC, so stick around.